I'll throw the. What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Apologize about us having another week of no show. We had some guest rearrangements we had to do. So this week, we're actually going to have 2 episodes again, just like we did a few weeks ago. Didn't mean for that to happen, but shit happens, and you guys are getting 2 episodes in 1 week. So, lucky y'all. Thank you, Golf, for joining me. And thank you for my guest, Tim Harms. Thank you so much for joining me today, all the way from Missouri.
Hey, Chad, how you doing, brother? Gino, how are you?
I'm here.
That's good. That's important.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, Tim comes all the way from Missouri, and that's going to be great to talk to him. But without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourself to everybody, and we can get the show started.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate everything you guys do. Like we all know that there's a big fight out there that we're all into. If you like plant medicine, and how I got involved in it was back in the mid '90s. I got involved in the compounding pharmacy industry, and I knew nothing about the drug market. But I was asked by a kid that was graduating from college with his doctorate in pharmacy, and his thesis was a marketing plan for a compounding pharmacy. So just through connections and people, we got together. And at the time of my life, I was writing some marketing plans and kind of doing some startup stuff myself. And we wrote this model, and I said, hey, can you take this to your professor and get some math for us so we can at least have some sort of projections? And so he does, and we sit down, and we're having a few beers, and I'm like, dude, there's no way this math is right. I said, I need you to go back, give me 3 specific products, and then come back and we'll figure this out. So he comes back a week later, and he says, well, actually, my professor said if you want to call him, he can show you how you can buy 55-gallon drums of stuff and take those spreads that he gave us and take them about times 100.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, let's look at this. So we did the math, and as soon as he graduated, we started a compounding pharmacy in a 10 by 10 room. We bought a clean room that we basically had a guy custom build for us, and we started making testosterone chewies for the racing greyhound industry.
Interesting.
Now, mind you, yeah, this is back in the mid '90s. Now, there were no rules in compounding. There were no documentation. So no different than the cannabis market, the hemp market, whatever, the policy isn't there yet. And that's where we were. So we weren't governed by anybody but the state board of pharmacy. And our state board of pharmacy had in Iowa at the time where we started the deal, he got all the compliance, got everything from the state board, and they basically said, hey, we can't govern you guys. You're doing something that normal pharmacies don't do. So that was good news to my ears as a entrepreneurial minded person. And we grew that pharmacy in 4 years to literally we were doing over $300,000-$400,000 a month in net revenue with 12 people. And
oh, wow.
We went from the chewies with the greyhound industry to selling them the ivermectin, the dewormers, all the stuff that animals, all drugs come through the animal marketplace. Everything is tested and validated through there. That's why I still eat ivermectin horse paste to this day, and just been around the vet industry, knew where all the good stuff was, the stuff that worked. And what we learned in the pharmaceutical industry was if it works, they don't want you in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And they took us out. They literally, there's a business model inside the FDA and big pharma that when you start to be a burr in the saddle, they're coming after you. And they did. And they won. Their model was very good because they have all the cash and the legal, all put in their back pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And so when did that journey end, essentially?
2008. I spent 3 years in a federal courtroom fighting for my right to make medicines based on a prescription from a licensed practitioner, which were veterinarians. And
Yeah.
so veterinarians actually have the exact same license as a PharmD pharmacist does. They can make their own medications, they can write the prescription, and they can sell it to the patient. They're the only practitioner left in our society that can do that. But they
Interesting.
don't. They just buy the
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's easier for them. It saves time. Why would you?
Yeah.
And I kind of always wondered that, because some of the drugs that you give a dog is the same for humans, just at different dosages, of course. And I was like, wonder what kind of license you have to have for a veterinarian. So that answers some of the random questions I get at 3 a.m. In my head and everything. So yeah, that's interesting to know that you come from not just like a pharmaceutical background, but like an animal pharmaceutical background, and learning that all the pharmaceuticals that we get today start on that side. Not only is it tested on animals, but it's put through that industry. I had no clue that's exactly what went down. Is it goes through that industry first, which makes sense. You're going to put it to the industry, you get essentially free testing, and you go from there. So yeah, that's interesting that you did that, and then it's kind of mirroring what's kind of going on in the cannabis industry, these days, unfortunately. With like the big pharma want to get involved, and the bigger companies, getting involved and stuff like that too. So I guess we'll jump in, to after that journey ended, what got you involved with cannabis?
So I had to spend a little bit of time detoxing from the FDA environment and the legal, because again, they took everything from me: house, cars, every bank account that I tried to hide, cabin, everything I thought I could hide. They already knew where it was.
Oh shit.
And so, and I raised 5 kids, 4 of them my own, and that was a very stressful time in my life. So I literally started a courier business, started driving at night, and my own van, because that's the only asset that I had left, was a $4,000 Chevy van with a paneling on the side,
Yeah.
and started another hustle. Well,
Yeah.
through that, it was about 6 years later, I get a call from one of my best friends I grew up with in Glenwood, Iowa, and he calls me and he says, "Harmsy," he's a doctor out in Colorado, and he says, "Harmsy, you need to get into this cannabis world." He goes, "This is no different than what you were doing in the compounding pharmacy industry." So I took his advice. I moved out. He was blessed. I mean, very, very fortunate to have him in a place in his life where he had a room where I could basically stay in. And I moved to Colorado and I started writing license applications.
Okay.
Again, I documented a compounding pharmacy. I knew how to write the SOPs. I knew how to write all the documents to stay compliant in the pharmaceutical world. So I thought this would be easy to do. Well, obviously they didn't have a clue. And literally in the very first meeting I had with a gal who was the very first inspector for the marijuana program out there, she came from the food service industry. And I said, "Hey, can you give me a copy of your SOPs so I can, have a platform to go off of?" She looks at me and she says, "What's that mean?" And I'm like, you don't understand what an SOP, standard operating procedure? And she goes, "I never heard that." Huh. Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
That's a
Yeah.
good place to start, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so I wrote an application for a manufacturing license. And we got awarded the license, had a guy out of Oklahoma that was funding it. And as we were going through the process, at the time, the analytical lab side was really new. And the manufacturing side to the cannabis industry, to me, is nothing. It is a compounding pharmacy, right? I mean, we've got hundreds of compounds inside this plant. THC is just one of them.
Yeah.
And it's an important one, don't get me wrong, but it's not the only one. And we don't even know what the benefit of this plant is yet, in my opinion. And that's why I do what I do every single day. And I made the transformation from the manufacturing lab into the analytical lab side. So I went to Iowa, went back to Iowa. They were licensing their program. I wrote a license application for a dispensary, had the building, had the funding, had everything in place. They didn't get licensed. And I'm like, oh, wait, I can have a compounding pharmacy inside the state, but I can't dispense weed? Come on. So I go to a guy that I met in the compounding pharmacy industry when I was in the Greyhound industry, and the Democratic lawyer for the state of Iowa. And I went to him and I said, Jerry, I said, here's my question. How does this happen? Who's controlling this? And he literally goes around the side of his desk. 20 minutes later, comes up and says, Tim, you can't get in this industry. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't get in this industry? He goes, don't even try. He says, Kemen is going to own and control everything in the state of Iowa. And Kemen Industries is a company out of Des Moines. They're a very large animal health pharmaceutical industry, and their family bought in to remember the Mad Men craze that they tried to blow up their industry in Colorado? That's what they did in Iowa. And to this day, that one family controls all the licensing and everything in the state of Iowa. So, again, the corruption just follows the plant everywhere you go. So after I licked my wounds on that one, I went into Missouri. And based on how Missouri was writing their rules on their licenses, they were only supposed to have 2 testing lab licenses based on the data, and right out of the gate. So I helped them, between Dr. Clapp and we put together a format for the state of Missouri to say, here's how you need to put analytical labs in the system. And they're like, oh, this is perfect. Thank you. Wrote the language for them, everything. So knowing that it's a corrupt system, I had to play that game, and we got licensed. We actually have there's 10 licenses that they license in the testing lab world in Missouri, both medical and recreational, and we're the only lab that is not operational currently. We have all the compliance. We've made it all the way to the drawing board, but we've made a decision that we're not going to be a part of that system. We don't. There's too much corruption. The pay for play on the testing. I'm 62 years old, Chad. I'm not going down that road. I can help more people in the hemp industry by helping them develop products and use my analytical lab to help them with consistency of products and do the same thing. Yeah. So that's basically my whole game that I get into is the analytical lab side, the reference lab side, to help stability and supply chain. I mean, we're not even close to where this is going to be yet, especially if they reschedule like we all think they're going to.
Yeah, whether we like it or not, and of course, people have their opinions. And to be honest, we'll talk about this later, and we'll mention it again. Is I keep telling people that the government's not even sure how to go about this yet. They're still figuring out what this means, because no one's made announcements yet of, yes, this is what that would mean, because they have no clue yet. So it's going to be a long time before we kind of figure that out. So now currently, are you working just in the hemp, or is that kind of when are you going more? Where's the story continue, I guess?
No, great question. So I made the transformation a few years ago and got certified as a harm reduction specialist. And I partnered with a good friend of mine out of Oklahoma City by the name of Chip Paul. Chip's a Native American natural healer, and he has a compounding lab doing all spices. We don't do any pharmaceuticals, we don't do any synthetics. Everything is herbs and spices. Do we include cannabis CBD? In some we do, but there's a lot of old therapies that what people don't even realize in our healthcare. The whole cancer industry is built on parasites. All these disease states, it's because we're all full of parasites. And until you clean your gut and get rid of worms, it's hard to heal. But God put everything in nature that we need to heal our bodies. Everything. If you really do the math, less than 100 years ago, we didn't have pharmaceuticals. 1937 is when she all changed. And they knew they had to get rid of this plant because everybody was using this plant. And this plant was taking care of over 50 disease states because of the benefits to it. You add in castor oil, cayenne pepper, oregano, garlic. there's just these herbs are so good for us, and it's so good for our bodies because it heals. That's what God designed these bodies for.
Yeah.
And so yeah, our you can go to the website www.truemedics TRUEMEDX.com, and yeah, we take care of patients every single day.
Nice, man. And so that's kind of the venture you're on now, so trying to find the placing and all that, because the market's changing a lot. And there's even some businesses here in New Mexico that don't just focus on the cannabinoids and everything. They add other things too, like different herbs, different things that will help you out with this and that, and not for just flavor. And the shout out to Will and them, I'll say them by name. They're one of the few that I know in the state that are doing that. Because that there's most people that do gummies, because that's really what they specialize in. They're really just focusing on, does it have THC? Yes. Does it taste good? Yes. Okay, put it out the door. And that's really all they're caring about, not the, hey, is this medicinal? Will this help somebody out? Sleep, or is there one to help me out with something else? And that's not what a lot of people are thinking about. And so when you can take those products, because to be honest, when I was writing this episode today, I stumbled upon this article, and I don't even know how the hell I did, but it mentioned oregano was better at fighting, I guess, bacteria or infections better than amoxicillin. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I didn't get to read the article or anything. It was just a headline. I was looking for something else. So, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm like, well, that's funny, because now we're seeing that, okay, we kind of went the wrong direction. Like we excluded a lot of whole plant medicine stuff that we could be incorporating now. Because I've heard many other people swear by oregano for other things too. Not just fighting the bacteria stuff. So this isn't something that's new, but also at the same time it feels new because we abandoned it so long ago. And I'd be a hypocrite if I'm sitting here saying that only cannabis is the only life-saving plant that there is out there in nature, when there's plenty more. Like there's many more. I mean, I even grew up drinking yerba buena, which is pretty much just like mint tea. And it was for stomach issues. If your stomach was feeling bad, your mom would go out there, grab some yerba buena, boil it up, and make you a little tea from it. And we all kind of grew up with that. And then the pharmaceutical stuff comes in, and we all just forgot about it. And even now, when the old Mexican ladies bring out their their little brews and stuff, it's like, oh, brujeria, but there's just the herbal remedies and stuff like that. And so now we have the opportunity to mix it back with cannabis like we have in the past. Not rely on it, but mix it to kind of help a little bit. So what are some products that you're working on right now with it that you can, I guess, chat with us about?
Well, I'll give you one. How many people do you know that's taken the Ozempic or the GPO ones to lose weight?
Gino raised like two hands.
Okay, so those products are bad for you. They're really
Yeah.
bad for the side effects, because all it is it's venom out of an animal, and a reptile, and at the end of the day, it numbs your stomach, and that's not good. God didn't create your stomach to be numb. He
Yeah.
created it to be in constant movement, and that's where the acids, the pH level. There's just a lot that goes into it. But at the end of the day, we make a product all naturally called Fast. So we help patients all the time get off of the GLP-1s, use our all natural product, and I'm telling you, it curbs your appetite.
Yeah.
It just does, and it's
Yeah.
all natural. There's not one synthetic product in it. It's a formula that we've done a ton of research on it, and it works.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate that people don't know that more, because of course we've seen the Ozempic stuff, a bunch of people on it. I mean, South Park made an episode on it, hilarious, by the way. Check it out if you guys can. But and we're seeing the studies now. It's harmful to your bones. It does this and that. And to be honest, rapid weight loss isn't very good for you anyway. In the way that it happens. So people probably running into issues with that too. Being the case. And so I had no clue that it was a venom from a reptile. But it makes sense. It's it numbs the stomach, and then it makes sense that why it's affecting your bones and everything, because I mean, it's a venom, and you're ingesting it. Or actually you're injecting it, excuse me. So you're injecting the venom, because I forgot. Yeah, where do they usually put that anyway? Where do they inject it usually? In the arm, stomach? Yeah. But
Most people do it like in the little fat in their waistline. Some will take it in the butt, just like the old testosterone. They still inject people in testosterone in the rear end. So it
yeah,
just kind of depends. Some people like the back of the arm. I mean,
yeah,
is it effective in any? I think it's most effective the closer you get to your stomach, is what I was told. But
yeah.
again,
Interesting.
I'm not into putting poison in my body right now.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I was in the army, I took enough experimental shots for a lifetime, so I think I'm good on that too. So, yeah, that experimental anthrax was no joke, man.
Right?
Yeah, so but that's cool. So like, are you full time shifting to this, or do you have any other plans going on? With this one too.
Yeah, no, we do. We're actually talking to a couple different countries over in Africa to help them build out their cannabis all natural health platforms by building these labs. I mean, again, we're gonna multiply these labs because we have to get the truth out to people and we have to educate the people. The biggest problem we have in healthcare is getting people to take responsibility for their own personalized healthcare.
Yeah,
And when I talk to patients, Chad, it's just the most unbelievable thing in the world. But when you ask them, okay, who's responsible for your health care? My doctor. Okay, I can't help you.
yeah,
Your doctor may be able to, but I can't help you. Till you take responsibility for it, I can't help you. Now,
yeah,
if you want to take responsibility for your health, you want to lose weight, you want to quit smoking, you want to get off alcohol, whatever it is, you want to quit eating sugar. Doesn't matter what it is. We all got something, right? Well, go back to the creator, go back to the herbs, go back to the earth. Everything is here. It's been here our whole lives. We've just been programmed by big pharma that doesn't work. That's crackpot stuff.
yeah,
Well, let me tell you, the crackpot stuff works. That's why
yeah,
they call it that.
yeah. And you know what? That's a good point because I have a really good doctor. She supports what direction I really want to take it. A more naturalistic way, or do I want to go the pharmaceutical way? And so she pinpointed out where I was having some issues, and she gave me that ultimatum. And I said, well, let's start the old pharma way and see where that gets with me. And it didn't go too well. I stopped taking the medication probably within 4 or 5 months. And then I remember she said the natural way, and I didn't ask her what at the time. I didn't think to, which foolishly. And I said, well, you know what? Let's try prebiotics. I heard wonders on that. And oh boy, did it do wonders. It's done so well that when I redid my test this year, she said, your test came back better. Don't get me wrong, it's still lower than where it should be. She said, but it's better than last year and it's improved. And I was like, oh shit. And she was like, yeah, and I told her about the reason why and this and that. And I said, when I used the pharma products, I had to take two medications, one to fix my issue and one to fix the issue it caused. And so I'm like, this is no way to do that. That's stupid. Like, why do I have to take two because one causes the issue that it's trying to fix? I'm like, that's dumb. I'm going to run into more issues than I want. And so I decided to go that route. And of course, all the other things I do in life and this and that. Oh, we lost the video. Are you still there, Tim? Can we hear you? Oh, there we
Sorry
go.
about
Cool.
that, guys. I had
Lost
a
you.
call come in. I'm not sure what happened.
Oh, you're cool. Yeah. I was like, oh, we lost you for 1 second. Let's see if that helps out.
So, hey,
That
one of
helped a
the
little bit.
things I'd like to discuss, if you don't mind, as we're kind of going down
Of
this
course.
compounding pharmacy, all natural process, we also have to talk about the placebo effect. One of the things that we never talk about in healthcare anymore, again, you bring up the word placebo inside of a hospital. I mean, it's like people look at you really weird. But the fact of the matter is, our minds are so powerful that we can watch a television show, watch an ad, create a disease state, get in my car, go down to my doctor, have them write a prescription because I just believe I have exactly what they told me on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're seeing it now real time too with all this ADHD and ADD thing and people self-diagnosing and things. Like I was actually diagnosed in middle school with ADD back when it was just ADD. So I'm like, I know I have it because I was diagnosed, but I'm seeing all these other people self-diagnosed, and I'm like, I don't know if y'all should be doing that. So I get what you're saying. They see it so much. They're like, oh, well, I do that, or oh, that's me too. And so they totally get that, man. The placebo effect. It's a huge thing, and your mind can totally play. I mean, there's several studies done on it. What's the one that we're all introduced to as a kid with the onion and the apple when you blindfold someone? You can have them say, oh, this is an apple, and you can trick them to eat an onion, and they could swear it was an apple.
Right.
So like, yeah, the mind is a very, very powerful thing. And the placebo effect is something that we should keep in mind when we're doing these tests. So it's funny and interesting that, it's being forgotten in the medical field, but we also have to remember too, that they're not very educated even on cannabis too. So, the medical field has its flaws or
Yeah.
industry.
And again, I think you're 100% correct. But at the end of the day, in order for us to help people make changes in their
Yeah.
life, we have to start with the spirit.
Yeah.
Let's go back to fasting. We weren't bred, we were not designed to have 3 meals a day. We were hunter and gatherers. And we maybe ate a meal every 3 days because we had to
Yeah.
wait for somebody to kill a deer. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I know it sounds weird in our society today, but God didn't create these bodies to put the poison that we put in it every day. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about the gift of the body and how it operates, as bad as we poison our bodies, yeah, we're obese, but we're still alive, and we can change people's lives so fast, all naturally. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And when you bring up like autism, I mean, the whole vaccine game, the whole industry, we can make. We are making a lot of headway with autism with all natural spices, and the cannabis plant, CBD, CBG, THCV has been wonderful for some patients. Again, it's all part of trying something new till we find the right formula that gives us the peace that we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, again, I'd be a hypocrite to say that, cannabis is the only plant that's going to work with someone with autism or ADHD, ADD. Because I have noticed that, using cannabis helps me pay attention to, certain things at certain times, or certain cultivars too, of course, a little bit better than other things. I did take very briefly a Concerta when I was a kid, and I fucking hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't only took it for maybe 8 months, and I never took, ADD, ADHD medicine ever again. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And people are like, well, that's being normal. And I was like, what? I was like, maybe there's another way around this. And so, cannabis has helped me, but if you mix that with other things that might help too. And I know it sounds stupid, but shit, maybe we were wrong the whole time, maybe we needed to rely more on the naturalistic stuff than versus just going straight chemical with the pharmaceutical, because it doesn't make sense to me, like for majority of human history, we haven't had this pill form stuff. Just take a pill and it's a miracle kind of thing. And I kind of feel, that was just pushed in, our poor boomer parents era and everything, especially, it was pushed very heavily. And of course, they repeated it. And so maybe we're wrong because, turn of the century, every doctor had cannabis in his bag, and, along with
100%.
heroin and other things. But, cannabis is one of the main components, and everything has its place, and people even use fentanyl medically. It's used. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a supporter of it. It's there and it is a thing. But, and if it has its place, it has its place. There's even doctors that'll use other things in the hospital. I've heard that just, I'm like, what, they do that? Like, yeah, they do it time to time, this and that, for this or for that. And you're like, had no clue you could use it for that. So it's cool that you're getting into that now, and it's unfortunate that, the industry kind of had to push you away from what you wanted it to do. But within that, sometimes we find a new passion for
100%.
it. And that's kind of what it seems that you've done, is you found your real true calling, and it's providing something like this.
Chad, you're right. God put me through that experience with the FDA and big pharma for a reason. And I knew I was going through something for a reason because I had no clue what I was into. I mean,
Yeah.
I literally can remember when the judge turned around to take his robe off and he called the pharmacist and I into his chambers and he says, boys, you really don't know where you're at, do you? And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if he's asking me that question, I think I know the answer to that. I don't
Yeah.
know. He goes, you're not going to win. He goes, they're going to take everything from you, whether you like it or not. So your only decision you got to make is, do you want to stay in business and pay a royalty to them that's going to end up burying you in the long run, or do you just want to walk away? So that's what I did. I walked away. I didn't sign. I did not agree that we were infringing on any patent. I wouldn't sign it because we were not infringing on the patent. And to this day, I'm very thankful and blessed that I went through that, because that puts me where I'm at today. And it gives me
Yeah.
that passion to know I'm on the right track. I mean, we're helping people, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we're helping people with. I want to make a little transition here. Obviously, you remember Waxy.
Of course.
Between Justin and I, we were pro Waxy, right? And I learned a lot from him when it came to how to take a passion and put it into politics.
Yeah.
Because he did it. I mean, he actually did it, and
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else that has personally.
Yeah.
And when he did that, it really allowed him a platform, and it gave him a voice. And that's all we're really looking for today, is to come and partner with Big Pharma. So we're actually working inside of hospitals now. I mean, we're getting really close to having THC and CBD and CBG inside hospitals, inside IV bags. We're getting close. But again, that's why when they reschedule this, which we are convinced 100% they're going to reschedule first, and then they're going to wait a couple of years and they're going to deschedule because of the research. We have to be able to get into the data. And until we're able to utilize that data to be able to show people that we're actually making headway, utilizing old technology. And again, you can go to TrueMedics.com. I mean, bioresonance. We can hook you up and we can show you through vibration where your parasites are in your body, where your infection is, where your inflammation is. Now we know how to attack it because of the research that we've been able to do on patients. Well, we can't use that data. So that's why every hospital, every doctor says, well, that's crackpot because it's not been tested and validated. That's not true. That's, in today's world, that's why this analytical lab side, I'm so passionate about, Chad, because of all the pay for play. We have to change that. Have
Yeah.
to. And
Yeah.
and the government's going to do that. I really believe they're going to, because of the corruption.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll take this time to move to the next conversation, which is the mess of cannabis testing and everything. Because that this is it's something huge. We need to kind of clean the mess up. And don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of fixing that we're going to have to do, and to be honest, we're going to be fixing for a very long time. And it's no single one person fault or single one thing fault. It's a collective things together that creates all of these issues, and so it's going to take many different fixes from many different angles to get there. So so let's talk about the cannabis testing mess. And so I've talked to my audience many times about it. That in every state essentially has issues with cannabis testing. They haven't figured it out. They're not doing it right. Things are getting through, and of course, the old pocketbook comes in, and some places you can pay for whatever numbers you want. So I won't speak for you, but what's your experience, yourself dealing with that, coming from that kind of background?
The truth is the problem.
Yeah.
And to me, again, I'm going to go back to data. Let's start with metric and BioTrack. Let's start with the track and trace systems. They're not built. They're not true recall systems. Mm-hmm. You have to have a system in place that you track, trace it, you transport it, you tax it. I mean, that's all got to be a part of the process, just like alcohol. I mean, there's software out there right now, CanID. You can go out there and you can buy this product. We use it inside our lab. I mean, we bought a machine. We have an HPLC because we gravitated to the beverage side, which is a whole nother conversation. But again, the whole beverage market is going to have an analytical lab inside the manufacturing, because you have to validate how much product you have in every can inside that batch. How do you know? So we're not even close to where this analytical lab business is going to go in the future. We got to get rid of the corruption. And the only way I'm very passionate about the agencies, the government. It's like in Missouri, they built their own reference lab to manage their own testing labs. Okay. That makes sense. So the fox is watching the hen house.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to figure out a way to eliminate that, because when you enter into Metric and you enter into these software products, there's stuff going out the back door. I mean, can we not just be honest about it? That's what really bothers me. It's like, I don't care where you're making it, but we have a responsibility to patients to make sure you're not using crappy stuff. And if you're using crappy stuff and I catch you using crappy stuff and I turn you in to my reference lab, guess what? I'm out of business.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, 100%. And, we're already seeing, a bunch of, like here in New Mexico, we actually dealt with this lab called Blue Bonnet Labs. They're from Texas. And last year, no, was it this year or last year? Oh, my years are getting mixed up now. I think it was earlier this year. It could have been last year. I don't know. For some reason, it's mixed up in my head. But we found out they weren't testing anything here in New Mexico. They were sending it to Texas. And this isn't hemp. This is cannabis. They were sending it to Texas, had no equipment here whatsoever. And so all of those samples had to be retested at another facility here in the state. And then those products had to be put on hold. We use BioTrack here. So, through BioTrack, they had to put them on hold or whatever, quarantine them. And it was a big mess. People lost thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That company lost their license. They're no longer to ever operate here in New Mexico ever again. And to be honest, probably good. Because, that's ridiculous. A lot of people, suffered because of that. And to be honest, I don't know if I can, say this comfortably or not, but I'm pretty sure a couple probably went out of business because of that too. There's a small businesses out there that something like that at the beginning can just tank you. And, it's nothing you can do about it. It's not your fault. It's just that they were a shady company, and who knows what other shady shit they were doing. If they were sending samples to Texas to get tested, they're probably just giving you whatever number you wanted, on top of that too. And what's funny is I saw them advertising. I went to Austin back, early spring to check out their legislature and stuff. And I happened to see that Blue Bonnet was advertising and advocating there. I was like, damn, does no one here know what happened just recently? Like they just lost their license for doing some shady shit. So, like we're gonna have to clean that up, and it's gonna have to be. And I've noticed this through the industry. A lot of people are afraid of speaking up. And it's this whole rat mentality from, the traditional market days, like, oh, don't rat anybody out, even if you got, did wrong, whatever. It's street justice stuff. Well, street justice is no longer a thing, guys. This is regular law justice that you have to do. We all have rights now, and there's particular ways that we have to operate. So with that being said, all of the shady stuff that's going on with the lab stuff, that's going to have to stop too, because that's where a lot of that mentality comes from, is like the traditional market, like, oh, you want good numbers? Well, I can get you good numbers, and so the almighty dollar comes in, and, it hurts everybody. And, you did mention, Missouri, they have the state lab thing, and, they can go and check results at that. And I love that. Here in New Mexico, we have a state lab. It's just not used, and they're not implementing it like that way, like it should be. And that's something that we've pushed for in the past. And to be honest, that'll be more fuel for our fire going further, is the fact that Missouri is currently doing that. And I think another couple of the states might be doing that too. But the fact that, they're for sure doing it will help out, because I think that keeps everybody honest, because they can just come in randomly, take up some samples, and to make sure that you're being accurate. And of course, there's already a variance of accuracy that you can be within. So if you're a couple percentages off, they're probably not going to go after you. But if you're reporting it 35% and it's coming out at 16, like you got a little bit of, got some problems there. So I mean, and from your perspective and your experience and everything with that, like what are I mean, have you seen people spooge or ask for numbers, I guess, in particularly like, hey, is there any way I can get 30%? Because I know some people do just, go for that high THC stuff.
So, yeah, I mean, I've been in conversations with people talking about that, and especially, 3-4 years ago. Does it happen as much anymore? Yeah, it still happens. And you're probably never going to get away with it until the legislators put the right rules in place. Analytical lab business has been operating inside this country underneath 17025 compliance for a long time. And then cannabis comes in and is like trying to change the rules in the analytical lab side, where the analytical lab side is saying, no, we have methods, we follow the methods, our machines do the work, and the result is the result.
Yeah.
And, it's very simple. It's not a difficult business. But when you're trying to make money, and, it's not cheap to buy brand new equipment from Shimatsu. It's not, it's a $2.5 million venture upfront cash wise just to buy the equipment that you need, let alone to buy the facility, to build it out the way you need it, to bring the right people in to run it. It's an expensive venture. So if a guy comes to me and says, "Hey, you up mine 2.5%, I'll program it in the computer through metric, or whatever system you got, doesn't matter. You can, it's all triggered. And once you do that, then you're in the pay for play game.
Yeah.
And they use that to market, to sell, because they got to turn cash.
Yeah. And, it's understandable to a sense, but at the same time, you end up with a lot more issues down the road, because that's like our first line of defense, for, making sure that people don't get harmed from whatever pesticides or whatever, that may be in the product. And it's unfortunate, that, and this happens in every industry, that the almighty dollar makes people do bad things. And like I said, that happens everywhere, in every single industry. It happens in the liquor industry, tobacco industry, pharmaceutical industry, doesn't matter. It's just unfortunate when it happens in your own backyard. And now, with cannabis, it's like, all right, now we have to fix this. We have to figure out how to fix this. I don't know how those other industries went about it. We can look at what they did, but when it comes to cannabis, we're going to have to probably figure out a different way, because, unlike, tomatoes, you're not smoking tomatoes, you're consuming tomatoes. So, it makes sense that you can just wash most things off of it. And don't, the growing part's something different, but when you're smoking a product, it's a little bit harder to get certain things off of it, clean certain things off of it, et cetera, et cetera. And, the only way that we ensure that that product isn't going to get the market is testing. And, it's unfortunate that there's so many monopolies in different industries that, even with equipment with this, there's not many places you can go to get, the testing equipment. And then when technology changes, the monopoly continues. And so what I'm getting at is, we have a lack of standardization. And so what do you think it would take for us in the testing industry on the cannabis side for us to get some kind of standardization? Because, some places have different methods of testing, and then, this and that variances and stuff. So what do you think?
I think the states ought to own the testing labs, and they ought to pay the people that grow the plant.
Okay, nice.
I mean, I think you have to just flip the script. I mean, at the end of the day, the reference lab is the most important piece to it, and that's where the cannabis industry screwed up. And I'll use Oklahoma for example. Just like Missouri, they licensed the testing labs, they got them up and operational, and they got everything running smooth. They got the pay for play, everything's in place. But now we got to do the reference lab side. Well, you can't really do it from arrears, because you've already got methods inside your machines. You've already got everything in place. So now you got to redo all that. Well, do you think they're really going to redo all that? No.
Yeah.
So you got to start at the reference lab first. And that's the third party lab that needs to be owned by a private company. Let the analytical labs be owned by the states. Every time a grower sends a sample into me, I pay them to grow that sample. Now there's no more pay for play.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, that might be a good, way to go about it, because there's certain things that we just can't rely on capitalism to ensure is going to go right. Like they're just, capitalism can't fix everything, just like cannabis can't fix everything. So there's going to be certain burdens that, yeah, I know, right? Gino's like, what? Sarcastically.
Yeah,
but there's certain things that we're just going to have to up the cost either through taxes or something. Like, I wouldn't be mad if some of my cannabis taxes went to a state ran testing facility where I know that real science is being applied, and then if they need to reference, they'll go to that third party lab who's going to be a little bit more honest, because they're not relying on the everyday Joe Schmo grower to fund their lab. The state is paying them whenever this happens. So that might be a better route to go. And to be honest, that's kind of where I've been pushing that to here in New Mexico. And honestly, I've been wanting them to move cannabis to the Department of Ag this whole time. And to be honest, that's what I really thought would happen, because the Department of Ag here in New Mexico runs the hemp industry. So why wouldn't you allow them to also do the cannabis side? They're already, controlling the production of that. They're already doing the testing for that. They already have inspectors and everything. So it would be a lot easier to just allow them to do something that to be honest, is the same plant. The only thing that's different
100%.
between hemp and cannabis these days is just the THC percentage. There's really nothing that's different between them. I can have two of the same plants together, harvest one early, call it freaking hemp because the THC levels are at the federal regulated level, and let the other one sit there for the rest of the time, and I have a adult use cannabis plant. And so once we finally figure that out, because I'm realizing how bad the disparity is with the legislators and the lawmakers and the regulators in education. It's not just the doctors. Our regulators and legislators are so ill-educated when it comes to cannabis that it worries the living shit out of me. I've said this example before in past couple of weeks. I want to let you in on it too. Our Department of Environment, or the environmental department here in New Mexico, they thought that CBD only comes from hemp, right? And guys, remember what I just said about hemp and cannabis. And so if you have a cannabis adult use product that has THC but also CBD in it, they thought that you added that in there and it wasn't natural. And so they went after one of the operators here in the state and said, you can't have that on your labels because it has CBD. That's a federal product. That's illegal. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? The CCD requires you to have CBD levels on there. So it's like one side is fighting the other. It's like, well, they told me to do this and you're telling me that I can't do this now. And you're also, what the hell? What are you talking about that, I added CBD in this? It's in there naturally. And so we're going to have to do a lot of work with our legislators and regulators, educating them, because it's bad. It's that bad to the point where they don't realize that what the federal government created was just confusion. And
Chad, let me ask you a question. So
Sure.
after how long you've been in this game for a long time?
Yeah.
Why are they still so uneducated?
A lot of it is willingly. A lot of them are willingly ignorant, and they remain that way. So that way, there's no excuse whenever they make a certain rule or law. That's what I've realized and noticed is, like, I can sit here and scream at them and give them as much documentation, video. I can draw it in crayon and on the fucking sidewalk in front of their house, and they're still not going to get it because they don't give a shit. And that's the problem. And that's when I tell people, stop voting for anti-cannabis people who don't get it. Stop voting against yourself and your best interests. Like, I get it. You may not like the dude's, stances on other things, but your business isn't what he's fighting against. Your business is cannabis. And if you have a candidate in there that's fighting against your industry, you lose. And then who wins? Big Pharma. And the guys with all the money, like, if you allow them to legislate yourself out of the industry just because of some political reason, and that's where I'm getting at with people. We need to do term limits. Like, term limits, oh my God, we need those terribly, because we have a bunch of fermenting apples in our Congress right now. Like, it's like the world's most expensive old people's home, and it's getting worse year by year. So if we have term limits, a lot of those issues will stop too, because you're going to have a younger, more educated group of people that are going to be making rules and laws and stuff. Like, people my age, we know more about cannabis and other drugs too. One, we had to take the stupid DARE program, so we learned about drugs at an early age. And two, we found out we were lied about during the DARE program, so we found out the real information about these drugs as well. And not to mention the countless people that experimented with, several others, et cetera, et cetera. It is what it is. So we're just relying on people that are unqualified, in my opinion, to make decisions on this. And they refuse to rely on people that do know. And we all know a lot of the times when it's willingly ignorant, it's because of this. And so another reason is the lobbyists that come from the companies that have the money. They're going to these politicians first, and they're giving them misinformation. So it's a misinformation campaign from the lobbyists, all along, as well as the politicians being willfully ignorant too. Sorry, it was a long-winded answer, but at the same time, it kind of felt like I needed the long-windedness of it.
No, all good, brother. You're 100% correct, and that's where. Again, I'm going to go back to my personal opinion. I have a medical freedom. I have a right, in my opinion, to buy a seed, to put it in the ground, to grow it, and to medicate myself the way that I want to take care of my health care. It's that simple. Whether it's cannabis, whether it's ibogaine, whether it's a mushroom, doesn't matter. Tomato, doesn't matter. It says it in my Bible. I can use that herb and that seed that God left me to put in the plant in the ground to medicate myself.
Yeah,
we did it, and we did it for centuries.
Yeah. Most of all of our ancestors, regardless of where you're from, dealt with some kind of plant medicine, somewhere in the past. Doesn't matter if it's Europe, America, or wherever. Like we've all done it. And had success with it, from like here in New Mexico, we have the pinon tree. And a lot of the native tribes, they use the sap of the tree for medicinal purposes. They'll actually use it like a neosporin. They'll put it on wounds and stuff like that. And also it catches fire very easily, so you can use it as a pretty good fire starter. But, it has medicinal benefits too. And I think they also, put it in teas and drink it and stuff. Yeah, I learned that as a kid. But yeah, it has its purposes, and we've been doing that for a long time. So yeah, like why not kind of get back to that, and there's all these other tribes that are still to this day using, plant medicines. Like when I lived in Hawaii, they still do certain things, that way as well. And you see it like kind of like my Yebra story. They have their own kind of, remedies and stuff like that, and things I never heard of. They were interesting, and I still do some to this day and stuff. I don't really rely on the pharmaceutical stuff very, very often, unless it's like an infection.
Yeah, I'm with you. That Polynesian culture in Hawaii, I think, is very unique. Just in how the spirit, again, the spirit, the mind, the soul, and they, again, it was a sacrament. They used it as a plant.
Yeah.
They use it as medicine. Their entire culture, to see. Yeah. So again, I don't want to get into a long, lengthy thing about the Polynesians, but I'm a big fan, and I believe that we have a right in this country for medical freedom. And that's where I try when I go to the politics, and when I go to the, you have to be involved in this industry, in politics, whether you like it or not. And the fact of the matter is that's my mantra. It's, I want the right to put a seed in the ground and not be a felon. That's it. It's that simple. And and I'll go back to what you said. We need one policy for one plant. A one plant policy. If I want to grow it for plastics, I tell the government that's what I want to do, and they're going to tax me based on that. Go to work. This is so simple because it's like what you said. It's agriculture. That's where we have to get back to, is growing the small hobby farms. I mean, with 2 acres of ground, you know how much food you can grow? I mean, it's a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's getting
Especially
back to
one person.
But it's getting back to the community. It's helping other people. It's not eating 3 meals a day. It's not pounding sugar in the morning right away. There's just a lot of change that our culture needs to adapt to. And in my opinion, it starts with the question, who's responsible for your health care?
You. Yeah. I mean, like the take the horse to the water thing, and being on and off drugs or being homeless. Some of it's, a personal choice. And you have to make the choice to make your life better. I could be on those pharmaceuticals still, but I decided not to, and I went another route. And to be honest, for me personally, that worked better. Going the natural route versus the pharmaceutical route. And so I know our conversation got off the testing facilities, for a little bit, but it kind of all goes around it. Like this conversation started because of that, because we were talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to some, testing facilities. And to be honest, sometimes it isn't always their fault. It's just it's the nature of the business they're in, and they're just trying to make their money. And like, I get it, but at the end of the day, people do get harmed. Like in other states, there's been issues all over the nation. I think I had one here from, I think Massachusetts was having like a recall. Like yesterday, they just had a recall on some products, and that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Don't get me wrong; it happens in every industry, especially when it comes to food and stuff like that. But when it comes to cannabis, we shouldn't be seeing as many recalls as we see. So I hope that in the future, some of the suggestions that you and I both spoke of, some of the legislators hear that and kind of go, okay, maybe we're doing this backwards. Maybe we need to be the ones who are testing and then rely on the third party ones to be the ones that do it afterwards, because this just ain't working. The way that we're doing it, rely them on the producer who's already stretched thin as is. The farmer, he gets shat on, regardless of what industry. He's trying to make ends meet, and then you're forcing the testing guy who's trying to make ends meet, who had millions of dollars of investment up front, due to just the environment of the equipment. So we'll see what happens. I appreciate your conversation on that. And if you don't have anything else, we'll go to the very last update. That one's probably going to be really quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I've been talking to people probably about for like the last 2 years on this topic, but I'd love to hear your take on it and your opinion as well. I'm just going to update on the federal descheduling, rescheduling thing. I know we've kind of talked about it a few times, but this is a great opportunity for us to kind of talk about it. Personally, I'm more of a descheduling fan, but reality tells me that we're more than likely going to get rescheduling. It's a whole, there's a way things are and a way things should be kind of thing with me. I can want something all I want, but I have to really understand that there's a reality point. And the way that the government is going about it is they created that hemp industry, which caused confusion. You know, we have all this confusion that's going on because of the hemp industry. And then, you know, if they go Schedule 3, it's going to cause more confusion. And so that's the reason why I'm more of like, let's just deschedule it. But I get the process of, yes, we need to be able to study it. And, you know, it can't just, you know, it shouldn't just be the companies that have millions of dollars that can afford the federal license, because we have one here in New Mexico and they haven't grown one damn plant yet. Or, you know, yeah, and allow more studies on it, which Schedule 3 will do. But, you know, it's going to be very limited at first. But to me, it's the same path that the states have been going with cannabis legalization this whole time, and now psilocybin as well. Is you go through the medical, you know, you do a medical program, and then from there you legalize adult use. And that's kind of what I feel the federal government is doing, regardless of me and myself, you know, pushing for, you know, deschedule. You know, in a perfect fucking world, you know, this plant wouldn't be, you know, scheduled at all, of course, but, you know, it is what it is. And so what happened recently, and I'll update you guys, is that, you know, yes, Trump did signal that he does support rescheduling. And some people are trying to get him to deschedule. I think one of the cannabis advocacy groups, I think it was Drug Policy Alliance, they actually sent him a letter to ask to deschedule. But he has been on the record many times saying that he only supports medical. He doesn't necessarily support recreational adult use. I don't know if someone could change his mind, but from what I've seen, you know, throughout the past, you know, many years, is that he doesn't really support a recreational kind of thing. And it does seem that we're going to get that. And other people are pushing, you know, for Schedule 3 too. High Times, you know, people like Wiz Khalifa and other advocates are pushing for the Schedule 3 thing too. And I get it. We just want something. You know, we want to win. We need something. We need to start somewhere. I get it. But, you know, what is your whole take on this whole deschedule, reschedule thing as well? Since, you know, you have your own opinions on it, of course.
Well, I'm going to make a statement that Waxy and I made all the time on our radio show. Science will always, always outrun the law. There's been people there's been people studying this plant underground with those machines for years, and the genetics, the things that we're going to be able to do once they do reschedule it, you'll be amazed at what will come up out of the ground of data. Again, I'm talking autism. I'm talking people that have MS. I mean, we can heal people. We don't have to keep them on drugs. We don't have to go that route, but we have to get people to take responsibility for their own health care and get them pushing for their medical freedom. It's that simple. And again, based on our Constitution and based on our rules and laws, if a doctor writes a prescription and it's dispensed through a pharmacy, and I'm a patient, that is now a Schedule 3 product that we can use and we can get, and insurance will pay for it.
Yeah.
So there are going to be some benefits for like the older people. I mean, I'm not going into a nursing home here in a few years if I can't use cannabis. I'm just sorry. I'll sit in my car. Don't care. But because there's patients inside of there that need our help and they can't get it. They want our help. They're going to the people that own these nursing homes and saying, I need CBD. I need this because now my hemp store closed up, but my daughter, my niece went and got their gummies for me and I've been using them. Now I can't get them anymore. I mean, there's a lot of people in dire need right now because of the legislators and what they're outlawing, not what they're improving on. And that's what we got to change. Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of deregulating the cannabis industry as is too, and the hemp industry, because there's just
100%.
It's overregulated to the point where it just doesn't make any sense. and it's just a blatant attack for no reason, and people are just fearful of losing their livelihood because prohibition made them a lot of money for whatever reason. So yeah, I'm with you on that, and
Hey,
yeah, this.
if you
Go ahead.
don't mind, Chad, I kind of want to segue
No.
just a second to the beverage marketplace. And this is where I think you get where the beverage marketplace and the alcohol industry is going to control 10 milligrams and below. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
They don't want high milligram stuff because that's not what people, they want more cans sold. It's just good business for them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want more milligrams in my beverage. And that's what we made a very conscious decision 3 years ago to go into the beverage side, because at the end of the day, a beverage is nothing more than a different delivery system, just like a compounding pharmacy.
Yeah.
But it's expensive to get into. It's hard to build a brand because when you go into all these different laws where, Iowa, you can only have 4 milligrams. Alabama, you can have 10 milligrams. Nebraska, everybody's got this. It's like, stop. Let's keep it simple. We don't need all this. We don't need all this, like you're saying, all this regulation, but you can have it because in my opinion, we need the alcohol industry to put the guidelines in place, which is just going to open up that door even more to descheduling the plant.
Yeah, that's true. And to be honest, I'm with you on the drink stuff. I'm a firm believer that in the future, drinks will be the number one way people consume their cannabis. A few things have to happen, of course, and this is years down the road, but we're already seeing that now. With the popularity of the cannabis drinks, especially when it started, with on the hemp side. Because you can get those, gas stations, wherever the fuck you want. I mean, even I think the Packers were, allowing, hemp-derived drinks at the damn stadium. So, you can get those freaking anywhere. And that proved the point that people want drinks. And to be honest, when I go to the consumption lounge here in New Mexico, I always get a drink. And I know you guys have, lounges there too, in Missouri as well. And, Waxy was always posting, about the drinks and stuff like that, and him working on the drinks. And I'm really for that. And yeah, we're gonna have to get on the same playing field with the alcohol industry because they've been in that drink game for this whole time. So and some of them are gonna get into the cannabis side and already are, regardless if we like it or not. So we might as well work with them to try to get the legislation that we need. Because the ones, especially the ones that have said, okay, we're not going to fight it, we're just going to join them. We might as well just join up with those guys and to try to get the legislation that we want versus them being the only ones that talk. Because when that happens, they're the only ones who win, and then we kind of get shat on. Let's hope that they'll be willing to work with us, because that's like the number one issue is sometimes those companies don't want to work with us and they want to kick us out that way. So let's hope that they do want to work with us, because yeah, I think that the alcohol industry is going to be someone that we really, really do lean on when it comes to the beverage side of the cannabis stuff.
Well, like, all you got to do is read the data. I mean, they're losing market share to non-alcohol beers. The younger generation's jumping off alcohol. They're using more cannabis. I mean, it's evolving. And how we learned about the beverage business is we actually had, when we were doing the radio show, we had an infused meal, $100 a plate meal at the Country Club in Rolla, Missouri.
Yeah.
And again, we thought, okay, we'll medicate the food, we'll do all this stuff. And the chef that we hired, he called us the day before and said, "Hey, do you guys mind if I bring this beverage that I've made up and I'll bring a CO2 thing and we'll just kind of pour it out of a tap?" And I'm like, "No, bring it. We don't care." And I'm not joking. It was we were out of it within 20 minutes.
Nice.
And everybody there was like, "I want more beverage. I want more beverage." They didn't care about the food and the preparedness. And, it was the beverage. And we literally the next day had a meeting and said, we have to go down this road. Never even entered our minds at the time. Well, we're talking 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look how far we've evolved in 3 years in the beverage market. We don't get there if it's not for big alcohol, if it's not for the convenience stores, if it's not for that support of the plant.
Yeah. Because, I've been telling people this too, that the dispensary model is a dying model. As we get further on into legalization, you're going to have to turn yourself into a distributor of some way, of some sort. Because, like, look up here in New Mexico, we don't have many liquor stores. you can get liquor and alcohol at Walmart, if you
Right.
want, or, pretty much anywhere you want. And that's going to be the same with cannabis. I'm going to be able to go to Walmart, Walgreens, and get a cannabis product. Will there be dispensaries? Yeah, here and there, but they're going to be for niche products, more or less like the very craft stuff, the very rare stuff. And that's kind of what our liquor stores are here in New Mexico anyway. They're more for like the special occasion liquor bottles kind of thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna go get this one because I know they have it over there. Maybe Walmart will have it during a special season, but they have it. It's what it's going to turn into. Now, will it be Walmart selling the very cheapest of the cheap weed? Will they have good weed too? I'm pretty sure they will, because they have different, levels of all kinds of stuff. Like if you look at their tobacco and their liquor, they have top shelf to bottom shelf. So I think they're going to have different levels of quality, and the drinks things is just showing us where we're headed. And it's heading more towards normalization and buying this. And one thing I do hope, and I'm with you on this, is that they don't keep the milligrams, low. And again, the part of me that is understanding of real life versus being hopeful, understands that more than likely we're probably going to end up with lower dosages, because, not everybody has my tolerance. But it's unfortunate that I can't choose it. I just hope that on the medical side of things, I can still remain a higher THC user. So that's going to be the interesting part, to see where the medical and the adult use side kind of meshes in the future when it comes to drinks.
Yeah, and I really do believe that big alcohol has they've got the control systems already in place. They've got the tax already in place. So I mean, the distribution channels are what's going to be interesting when you tie in, like with big alcohol, all your beer distributors, they've got all the channels, they got all the lanes already built. But what they don't have are the kids and the social media throwing people into those stores to buy the product. They don't have that, but the kids do.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where we believe that the social media side to this and growing brands is college campuses. Why you could build a brand on a college campus right now and manufacture it. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money to build out a brand.
Yeah.
But if you want to build a Red Bull brand, they're not a very good product. They're just a brand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, especially with their crazy stunts.
Yeah. They're branding, and they've conditioned us to believe that that's where I want to be. That's who I want to be associated with.
Yeah.
And I believe the next generation of kids will be able to do the exact same thing on social media, and they'll make so much money on the beverage marketplace once it starts taking track inside big alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. But well, with that being said, I've realized how long we've been going on this. I'm like, oh man, it's been an hour. So thank you so much for the conversation and everything, man. I could sit here and talk about the drink stuff, and then I look forward to more conversations on that. We'll talk more in the future on it. But thank you so much for joining me today, man. It's been a great conversation. Thank you for, sharing a lot of your knowledge and everything that you've, experienced and everything through the years. Because, there's been a lot of cool things that were said today, and, maybe some people, they'll change their mind when it comes to pharmaceuticals, and relying solely on them and everything. And, we'll see what happens with this rescheduling stuff too. So it's been a weird couple of weeks, and I think it's going to be a more weird couple of months coming up. So we'll see what's going on and what happens and everything. So thank you so much. And before I leave, I want to update everybody. This is a New Mexico thing. We have the rules hearing next Wednesday. So from the time of recording, a week from now, that they're going through and everything. But on Sunday this week coming up, we're going to have another pre-rules hearing, because we had that Zoom hearing yesterday that I had with a bunch of operators and stuff. Went really well. We had a bunch of great conversations, a lot of good fixes and stuff for the rules that they kind of messed up. So we're going to do it again on Sunday, because we just didn't have enough time to really go through everything. So we're going to do that again. And if you guys are interested, I'm going to leave all those links and stuff the next couple of days. It'll give you guys a couple of days to, get ready. So I just want to leave that. And without further ado, is there anything else you want to talk about or say before we head out, sir?
Hey, blessings to you and Gino, for what you guys do, and for even having this podcast and sharing the vision and the word. Because without people like you doing this, it helps everybody in the industry. So thank you very much. Gino, thanks for your hospitality behind the suite.
You got it. All right, man. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Actually, you guys are going to see me tomorrow for another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. So I'll see you guys here soon. All right. Shoot.
Thank you.